Hello, today we're going to look at Q Skills 1, Reading and Writing, Unit 5 and the grammar. We're going to learn how to use at, on and in. These are very confusing sometimes, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at when do we use at, and then I'm going to ask you to practice. Over to you means practice, and put the words in the correct order. Then we'll look at when do we use on. Then, again, over to you means practice. We'll practice by you choosing at or on. Then we'll look at when do we use in. And over to you, so it's practice again. I want you to complete some sentences with at, on or in. Then we'll look at, on and in when we're telling the time, when we're talking about dates and periods of time. So for example, at 3 o'clock on the 21st of January in the 1970s. Then we'll look at Q Skills 1, Reading and Writing. This is your book. You'll need to go to page 103. And finally, we'll look at the LMS. You'll need to go to Q Skills 1, Reading and Writing, Unit 5. Okay, so are you ready? Let's go to the first part. When do we use at? Well, we use at when we're talking about buildings and where we are. So for example, we were at the Kingdom Tower. We are not at the university. Is that difficult? No. Let's look at another example. We use at events. Now, what do we mean by events? Let's look. Were you at the football match? Or I'm at the G20 meeting. Now there are two more. We use at when we talk about addresses, but we use a number of a street or a road. For example, they live at 22 Park Road. And finally, when we're talking about familiar places, and that is places that you know well. So for example, let's meet at the coffee shop. We spent 3 hours at the mall. I'm at the hospital. Is she at home? Now please notice that in a sentence we say at, not at. So we were at the Kingdom Tower. We are not at the university. Were you at the football match? I'm at the G20 meeting. So remember, in a sentence the pronunciation is at. Now, we also use at to describe the following. A fixed position. So for example, I was at my desk. There is someone at the door. And to talk about companies where you work. So let's have a look at two examples. How many people are working at Microsoft? Or there are lots of teachers at King Saud University. Remember, the pronunciation of this little word in a sentence is at. Activities with a group of people. Were you at the football match? We were at the cinema. Now there are four more. When we talk about school, college and university. She always did well at school. We studied hard at university. Also, when I said before, we're talking about addresses with a number. So for example, they lived at 12 South Street. Public places where we get a service. Now what do I mean by that? Let's look. I was at the doctor's. That's why I'm late. And finally, for most shops, look what I bought at the supermarket today. Now this is a lot of information, so we're going to practice this now. Are you ready? Okay, let's take a look. I want you to put the words in the correct order. Let's look at an example. Here we have up we at 10 o'clock. Those words are not in the correct order. You need to reorganize them. Working you grandmother at mall are. That's a question, so be careful. Husband work at is my. The at who door is. And I'm at the dentist's. Oh, I've just given you the answer to that one. Please pause the video, take a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and put these words in the correct order. Remember, the first word in the sentence must have a capital letter and that the end has a full stop. Right, let's see the answers. Okay, these are the answers. We get up at 10 o'clock. Are you working at Granada Mall? My husband is at work. Who's at the door? And finally, I'm at the dentist's. Did you get the same? Remember again, we say at the door, at the dentist, at 10 o'clock. Now, let's go to the next part. This is on. When we use on to describe the position, look at these examples. A position on any surface. So for example, I know I left my wallet on the table. Or a position along a road, a river, or a sea, or a lake. So for example, Dublin is on the east coast of Ireland, or our house is on the river. Here it means near the river, and then we're playing on the street. We also use on to talk about the floor of a building. Now what does that mean? They live on the 15th floor. Well, I live on the 3rd floor. And for public transport. This is public transport, not your private car. So for example, I was on the train when she phoned, or I didn't see you on the bus, or we had dinner on the plane. Now it's time to practice. So over to you. Do we use at or on in these sentences? Let's look at an example. Where's my phone? Do we say it's at the table or on the table? You decide. Another example. Where do you live? Do we say at or do we say on the 2nd floor? Here are 3 more. I would like you to pause the video and choose at or on in each sentence. Let's look at the answers. Where's my phone? It's on the table. Where do you live? On the 2nd floor. I was at the police station for a long time. I want to go on holiday and sit on the beach. And we're on the bus now. We will arrive at 8. Did you get the same answers? If not, please go back and review the video again and the examples. Are you ready for the next one, the final one? When do we use in? Okay, let's look. We use in for rooms. For example, I know my book is somewhere in this room. Can anyone see it? Are you in the kitchen? Or you could say, are you in the bathroom? Are you in the bedroom? Are you in the living room? We use in for workplaces. For example, she works in an office, or we waited in the classroom but our teacher didn't come. Let's look at a couple more examples. We use in when we talk about class. So when you're studying. He found it difficult to concentrate in class. Maybe some students were talking or using their mobile phones. We use in for cities and towns. So for example, we lived in London for 5 years. Or do you know a good hotel in Mecca? Now, what I want you to do is complete the following sentences with at, on, or in. So you ready? Let's look at some examples. I did not have much work to do. Is it at class today, on class today, or in class today? You decide. Another example. We are from a small town. Is it at England, on England, or in England? I would like you to try 3, 4, 5, and 6. Pause the video and choose for each one. Is it at, on, or in? 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 Let's look at the answers. It's in class, in England, in Riyadh, at the petrol station, on the floor, at the door. If you did not get the same answers, please review the explanations of at, on, and in. Now, let's look at some other times we use at, on, and in when we're talking about times. So let's look. We use at when an activity starts or finishes. Here are some examples. The match started at 3 o'clock. Can we meet at 5:30? Or the train leaves at 7:30? That's quite easy, isn't it? Now, we use in for months, so for example January, February, March, and periods of years before the year 2000. Let's take a look at some examples. Prices were lower in the 1970s, or your new car course starts in January, or in February, or in March, and my grandparents lived in the 1900s. In the 1970s is a period of 10 years. In the 1900s is a period of 100 years. So that's what I mean by periods of years. And on we use for dates, but with a number. For example, I was born on January the 2nd, or the meeting is on the 31st of October. Okay, now it's time to open your books. Please go to page 130 in Q Skills 1, Reading and Writing, Unit 5, and you will see this page on 103. Let's look. Here are explanations of on, in, and at. These are called prepositions of location. And these are the examples that they give in the book. What I want you to do is to go to page 104. There is an exercise here, and in each case, complete the sentence with in, at, or on. So for example, most people don't listen to live sports while they're, is it at work, on work, or in work? Please pause the video and complete these 8 sentences. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. It's at work, on Rose Street, because there's no number here. It's not 22 Rose Street. At school, on the street, in Dubai, in the car. Is this at or on or in? At home, the King Abdullah International Stadium. Now finally, I need you to go to the LMS. Choose the book. Let's go to Activities. And what we want is the practice. And the practice for this unit. So it's Unit 5. I want you to do 2 exercises, prepositions of location and prepositions of time. Let's look at this one. All you have to do here is you have in, on, and at. I want you to take each word and put it in the correct column. So for example, New York City. If you think it's in New York City, move it there. If you think the car is in the car, move it there. Okay, pause the video and do your exercise. And finally, we're going to look at prepositions of time. So it's at, on, and in. If you need to know more, you can press this button and read more to remind you. And then, is it I was in Paris in, at, or on yesterday? Oh, sorry, in January. You can check your answers at the bottom. Okay. Now, we've done these 2 exercises on the LMS. Thank you for watching and listening. It has been a pleasure.